What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that was just released on VOD, and I think it just got a very limited theatrical release. And I think I saw the trailer for this movie one time, but I was really interested to watch it because it stars Samara Weaving, who I'm a huge fan of. I've really enjoyed Samara's performances, especially in the horror genre. She's really been knocking it out of the park with a lot of the projects that she's chosen to be involved with throughout her career, which is what really interested me about this. And the premise was interesting enough for me to hope that this would be like a fun suspense thriller with maybe a little bit of a horror edge involved. And the movie I'm going to be telling you about today is Borderline. Borderline is directed by Jimmy Warden. A helplessly romantic sociopath escapes from a mental institution and invades the home of a 90s pop superstar. He just wants to be loved. He just wants to survive. So I was super excited to watch this movie. Like I said, I am a big fan of Samara Weaving, and so I was hoping that this would be along the lines of like Ready or Not or some of the other projects that she's been involved in that I've really enjoyed. And unfortunately, this movie was really bad. It is a complete and total mess. I feel like it has a very specific idea, but the execution of that idea is just really poorly done. I feel like for a 90-minute runtime, there's so much of this that's just stretched out and bloated and uninteresting. I felt like all the characters were really hollow and underdeveloped. I didn't feel a whole lot of the suspense or the tension that the movie was going for. And I'll break all that down when I tell you a little bit about the movie today. So, the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Paul, played by Nicholson, who we realize really early on has some severe psychological problems, and he has escaped from some sort of psychological facility, and he is obsessed with Sophia, played by Samara Weaving, who is a pop superstar in the 90s, and he's constantly stalking her and going to her house, and her security officer is pushing him away and ensuring that he doesn't like invade her personal space. Well, early in the film, we see a confrontation between Paul and the security officer that gets incredibly violent. And after that happens, some time passes. The security officer is okay after being injured. Day-to-day life for Sophia is just normal. She's dating Devontae Rhodes, played by Jimmy Fails, who is an NBA player at that time, and we see little glimpses into their relationship. Well, of course, after the initial altercation with the security officer, Paul manages to get out of the facility that he's in, and he believes that he is meant to marry Sophia. And so he gets a person who escapes from the institution with him to help him, and someone on the outside to also help him make sure that he can marry Sophia. And the entirety of the film is Paul manages to invade Sophia's house, and it is her fight for survival. So like I said, this movie was not very good, and there's multiple reasons why, but I'll talk about the very slim positives here. I do think all of the performances in this movie are really good. I feel like everyone does the best job that they possibly can with this very hollow and uninspired script. I love Samara Weaving, and I think like for the time that she's on screen, which is surprisingly not a lot in this movie, there's a very large portion of time that her character is not involved in the plot arc, but I do think she does the best job possible that she can with this material. I feel like Nicholson really is the standout in this movie, and I've really enjoyed him in all of the movies that I've seen him in recently. I feel like he's going to keep involving himself in these like horror, suspense, thriller, action projects, and he really does a nice job. He has a very chaotic energy, and I think for this character, he's struggling with this mental illness clearly to a very extreme degree, and I think watching him process certain things and kind of lose his sense of reality, his performance accompanies that very well. And I think all of the other actors that show up in this movie do a really nice job. It was great seeing Jimmy Fails in something again. Last Black Man in San Francisco is one of my favorite movies of all time, so it was really cool to see him in another project, and he does a really nice job with what he's given in this movie as well. And I'd say if I gave it another compliment, it's competently shot. There's nothing like super awe-inspiring or mind-blowing about the movie, but it looks nice, and so because of that, it's easy to keep yourself invested in what's going on. But everything else in this movie is a mess. For starters, this is supposed to be like a psychological thriller where there's an unstable character who is trying to like hurt this person that is completely and totally confused as to why this is going on. And I feel like with how they pace this movie out, it's so hard to care about any of it. There's large portions with this security officer and his family, and they keep cutting back to those segments. And then when we get back to the house, when like Samara Weaving's character is captive, or like she's fighting one of these characters, there's so much meandering, uninteresting dialogue that doesn't really lead anywhere, that completely and totally pulls away from the tension. I also feel like they didn't do enough to make Ray Nicholson's character threatening. Like, I like that he plays insane really well, but like as far as threatening moments, there's even scenes where he's like pulling out a knife and like doing these different things where you're supposed to feel incredibly threatened by his presence, and that there's a semblance of danger for any of these characters' lives. But it's just the way the dialogue is written, and maybe the way that he's just moving his body in the scene, that I just didn't feel any of that tension that they were going towards. And obviously, whenever you see this movies like this, there's been a ton of films throughout history about like stalkers and people with mental illness that are like feel some sort of attachment to a celebrity, and so they hunt them down and feel like they're their property essentially. And I think there's a fascinating idea here about like parasocial relationships and people's obsession with celebrities, and like how a person's art can connect with you. But this movie doesn't dive into that in any way, shape, or form that makes you think about it after it's over. It's really just like happenstance that this person has become obsessed with a celebrity. Like something happened when they were at one of the concerts that was probably the trigger event for this, but I don't feel like it's examined in a way that I wanted to think about it much after it was over. And I feel like the movie really sprints to the finish line. There are so many moments in this that I just found myself tuning out, and I wish I didn't, because there's so much powerhouse talent involved in this movie, but it's not incredibly suspenseful. There are a few funny moments in the movie. There's one scene in particular where the woman who escapes the psych facility with Ray Nicholson's character does like a duet with Samara Weaving, and I thought that there was some charm in that, and it was relatively funny. But outside of that one particular moment, there's just nothing standout in this whatsoever. It just feels so formulaic and run of the mill when it comes to this style of movie, and I'll probably never think about it again. So have you seen Borderline? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly underwhelming and very disappointing. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.